It's official. Matt Ishbia and Brian Gregory have made one of their first moves here in free agency and have picked up the non-guaranteed contract of Nick Richards. What does that mean for the Phoenix Suns with their center rotation? Does this mean another move is looming out there on the Phoenix Suns side of things? And how will this ultimately affect Jordan Ott's front court and how the Phoenix Suns look to retool this roster alongside Devin Booker? Welcome back to Suns Digest. I am Bruce Veliz. I'd like to say thank you all for tuning in, showing your love, showing your support here on the channel. It's really appreciated for all that you guys have been showing here, and I can't say thank you enough. With all the latest rumors and news, we've been soaring up in the ranks on YouTube, and it really does go a long way. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, showing your support. Let me know your thoughts on the latest updates revolving around the Suns, as like we all know, there are plenty of teams being interested with moves moving left and right within the NBA, as free agency does start tomorrow, and I do think the Suns will be very, very active in the next couple fronts of days. So without further ado, let's dive into the video at hand. Make sure to grab that snack, and let's get into it, as this is an interesting move from the Phoenix Suns. As you all know, we saw the Suns on draft night do something spectacular and land Mark Williams in a trade with the Charlotte Hornets, and also draft Kaman Malawach. And the Suns, we all know, had this big hole at center. Everyone wanted to fill it during the Kevin Durant trade, and it wasn't. And then everyone started to react. How are we going to get this center? What are the Suns going to do? Well, ladies and gentlemen, they found a way. They found a way. But not only did they find a way this year doing it, last year they tried to patch up those ends. And they had a guy who was a non-guaranteed contract, which many of us thought was going to be making his way back as a solid backup in Nick Richards. But with the addition of Kaman Malawach and the addition of Mark Williams, it all raised the question of, where does Nick Richards really fit within this team? Were they going to waive his non-guaranteed deal to shed that money so they could make it a little bit easier to make a Bradley Beal trade, or do a Grayson trade, or do a Royce trade? Or were they going to pick up that contract and keep it on the books? Well, the Phoenix Suns finally answered that question today, as Nick Richards' contract was due, and they said that they will pick up Nick Richards to come back to the Phoenix Suns this season. Now, I'm not 100% sold on this move. I'm not 100% against this move, but it definitely does raise an eyebrow personally for me. Because like I mentioned, there have been multiple teams that have been notably known to be interested in a Nick Richards trade because the Suns, like I just stated, drafted Kaman Malawach and traded for Mark Williams. And you can make the argument that, well, Mark Williams gets injured, what happens if he gets hurt? Kaman Malawach is a little bit of a developmental piece for the Phoenix Suns. Well, what does that really mean for his role? He's not gonna be starting. So if Williams gets hurt and Malawach isn't that guy that can start, well, now you got Richards. Well, we saw what Richards did as a starter. He wasn't that great, and I want to let you all know that Richards and Williams have played with each other. They were just the Hornets front court just a couple years ago, and now, or just even last year. And now the Suns are just going to say, oh yeah, we want the Charlotte Hornets front court that didn't work for the last 2-3 seasons. Yeah, that's going to work here alongside Devin Booker. I don't know. I think what it says to me, and a lot of other people would agree with this as well, is that the trade is coming. And Brandon Clean means a trade has to be on the table. And I couldn't agree more, because there's no way that if you're the Phoenix Suns, you can have all these centers on the roster. And shout out to my guy, John Voida of Bright Side of the Sun, the managing editor over there. He does Suns Jam podcast as well. He posted this on his Twitter, where he's been crunching all the numbers of every player on this team's salary cap as every move kind of occurs, right? And there's an article that we have on the website that you guys, if you want to, find out as the moves happen, check that out over on Bright Side of the Sun, because it's absolutely fantastic. But here is what the Suns are looking at as of right now. Now, Kobe Bryant is not on this list at the moment, and this would be them bringing back a guy in Nick Richards on that $5 million deal, right? So currently sitting $16 million above the second apron, $28 million above the first. The Suns have a lot of options, and they need to shed some money. Their only option to shed some money, or a big chunk of it in Vasilije Micic, they traded for Mark Williams. So now they have to find other ways to shed the salary. And guys like Nick Richards could have been that easy out. Now, if you shed Martin and Richards together, there was no possible way that it would have been done. But holding out Nick Richards and possibly using him in a trade has to be really the only answer for this Phoenix Suns team. Because there's no way, in my opinion, you can hold four centers. Unless they're trading Oso Ighodaro, which could make sense using him as an attachment in a Bradley Beal trade. But I'm sure that they're going to get another center as a bad contract back in that move. So I don't know if that's the greatest thing. Nick Richards also makes $5 million, and for plentiful teams out there that need center, like the Celtics, like the Lakers, I'm sure they would take a flyer on Nick Richards for some second round picks and just a random contract that they have on their roster. The only problem is will the Suns be okay with that? I know the Lakers have a guy in Shake Milton. Now, I'm not saying we want to help out the Lakers, and Shake Milton wouldn't be great for the Phoenix Suns as well. But if you trade Nick Richards for Shake Milton, not only do the Suns save $2.5 million because Milton makes 2.6 and Richards makes 5, but also the Suns could try to get some additional assets from the Los Angeles Lakers in draft capital to use down the line or in another trade. But not only just that, would have the money to waive Shake Milton and then get out of that 5 completely with adding draft capital. That's just an easy win. Similar to what the Thunder did yesterday with Dillon and Kobe Jones. They traded Dillon Jones to the Wizards, got Kobe Jones back. They did their best because they needed to shed a player in a roster spot. They sent one of their guys away, gave him an opportunity, and unfortunately for Kobe Jones, who wasn't going to make their team anyways, he just got waived and he has to find somewhere else. But that's something the Suns could do to a guy like Richards. Say, hey, you played solid for us the second half of the season. We're going to ship you to the Lakers, or ship you to the Celtics, or ship you to the Spurs, ship you to any team that needs a backup center for $5 million, and we're going to take back a guy that makes 2. And then that not only saves the Suns money, if they do that, but also, if it's a non-guaranteed deal or a bad contract or a veteran minimum the team doesn't necessarily want, they can just axe it and get out of the money for free while adding draft capital. I just don't understand why that hasn't. Maybe that's what's happening. Maybe I'm cooking. But we'll have to keep our eyes out for that. And then, like I mentioned, there's going to be other moves. Free agency starts tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. So the Suns will be getting active. And like I mentioned, they still have $16 million to shed to get underneath that second apron. So they can aggregate salaries in a contract, right? So they can make a Bradley Beal trade easier. So they can take on more money potentially, right? But they don't have the roster spots either to even do all of that. They have to trade guys like Grayson or Royce or Cody Martin or Nick Richards for other draft capital so they can use that attached to Beal or attached to some of these other pieces so they can get out of it. And then that's what's going to solve this Phoenix Suns team. Now, ultimately, we'll have to wait and see what does transpire because Grayson Allen could still be here. Royce O'Neal could still be here. Bradley Beal, unfortunately, for the worst, could still be here in Phoenix as well. But that's what we have to break down and look at. Unfortunately, with Nick Richards coming back, it is a great piece for the Suns to have. I would have been more excited if they didn't trade for Mark Williams or draft Malawach. Not that I'm happy that they drafted those guys. I'm not saying that. But Richards would have been a better fit, right? If you asked me 2 weeks ago or asked me before the draft how I would have felt about Nick Richards coming back on $5 million, I would have been ecstatic, right? We got a great backup center at $5 million. Let's go and find that starting center and then have Richards be our backup, right? That's what have been my mojo, my thinking. Oso can play alongside of him a little bit as well, share some of those minutes. It would have been great. But ultimately, now with Malawach being in here, now with Mark Williams being in here, there's no fit. It's just like how we look at with the shooting guard group. There's too many of them. There's too many centers. There's too many shooting guards. And like I've preached, they're obviously going to make those moves. It's going to happen. It still is June 29th. But I want to see, with these contract dates coming up, some movement in these next couple of days and not just some slow, gradual nothing from the Phoenix Suns of just radio silence. Because if that's the case, and we start inching closer to June or closer to July or mid-July, and they still have Bradley Beal, or they still have Grayson Allen, or they still have Nick Richards, that's when I'm going to be getting a little bit worried. But let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Like I said, Nick Richards is back, but who knows if he's actually going to be staying with this Phoenix Suns team. It looks like he could potentially be moved. Maybe he will stay here as a secondary or tertiary big in this front court, because like I mentioned, they think Williams is going to not be fully 100%, or they think that Malawach's going to be a guy that also could have some raw prospect, maybe the talent or prospect that they don't want to throw into the hoops into the fire right away. If Williams gets hurt, then maybe they keep Richards. But ultimately, I don't really see that on the cards for the Suns. So let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Let me know what you guys ultimately think on the moves that you guys have seen so far. I thought Cody Martin's deal was today, but I was corrected by Keith Smith, and it is tomorrow. So regardless regarding Cody Martin, we'll have an update on that. If he's traded, if he's waived, if he's brought back, what ultimately will happen with this Phoenix Suns team. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Maybe there'll be another video today, depending on the moves. Who knows? But if not, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day, and go Phoenix Suns. Peace out, everyone.